Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I specifically want to talk about the difference between a traveler and an adventurer for a player character. Well, by the way, I don't use player character and non-player character. I use character and entity. When I say character, I mean player character. When I say entity, I mean non-player character. I really wish we would get rid of these terms in Dungeons and Dragons. I think the NPC even is like a loaded phrase now. Like they banned it on Twitter for a while. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But let's jump into this. So I'm running my FLGS game, and something really interesting happened where we're on episode 7, which is great, right? Like most Dungeons. I don't know if you know aware of this. Most Dungeons and Dragons campaigns fold after six episodes. Wow, season 1, episode 6, you're likely to not get another. That is astounding, and it speaks to how difficult it is to be a dungeon master. It's one of the reasons why I talk about it so seriously. It's not easy, right? People think you're just gonna, throw up Stormwreck Isle and put some goblins down. It ain't that simple, right? Like, and the reason why is the world is offering people huge options for entertainment, and so we got to really bring it. You got to take it very, very seriously, right? So recently, I've just had episode 7 of my FLGS Dungeons and Dragons Lego Eberron Obsidian campaign, and I noticed one of my players specifically, and then another player joining them. We're just letting adventure hook after adventure hook after adventure hook pass by, right? Like, I would set up a quest, I would set up an adventure, and they'd be like, nope, we ain't doing that. We'll just stand by and watch while the other player characters do that thing, right? I was like, what's going on here, man? Like, and they were just not, and if they would fight, it was only because they were trapped there. They just were not assisting the other player characters, right? And I was like, this is really odd, right? And I was a little worried, right? And because I was like, maybe the players aren't engaged. But I'll tell you right now, like the only metric that matters, do they show up the next week? Period. End of sentence, right? And the reality is, and I literally invite my players to the table every week because they have that option. They can step away from the table. They don't have to play forever. No one is a prisoner, right? And so, I think it's really important that, and I'm not sure everybody's doing that. I think a lot of dungeon masters are expecting that their players will play forever. I am not, right? I invite everybody every week and say, if you are free, this is happening at this time, and it's super important to me, right? Like, that they're there because they want to be there. I don't want them to be, if they don't want to be there anymore, I want them to be free, right? Like, so it's really important, right? So what I was really I was like, why aren't they engaging with these hooks, right? So something really interesting happened. So my Storm player, who is also the Storm Dungeon Master, who is running the Pokemon, who is running the Pokemon Dungeons and Dragons campaign, right? Poke D&D Next Generation, right? I had, he's playing in my D&D Eberron Obsidian, right? And so that's a great time, to spend each week, and it's fantastic. But the dynamic is, I'm the dungeon master, that person is the player, and there really isn't any time to in-depth discuss dungeon mastering, the shape of fandom, life, right? So I invited this person on a Saturday. I said, hey, let's get some lunch. I really just want to spend some time away from the Dungeons & Dragons table. And my intent was just to get to know this person better, because I think they're really smart, and I think there's things I can learn from them from a dungeon mastering perspective, but also from a life perspective. I'm very impressed with this person's overall approach to life, right? So we go out for lunch, right? And I specifically did not bring up my Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and the reason why was, there's a great business book. If you haven't read it, and it's called Never Eat Alone, right? And what it's saying is, meals are a powerful thing. You break bread together, you can deepens friendships together. The other thing is, I think friendships are started with Dungeons and Dragons, but they're solidified when you do other things. And so I've done many things with the player, with the player groups that I've been playing with. And this guy was even saying that recently, like Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves was, a lot of player groups went and saw that together. That's huge, right? We're getting away from the table. We're doing something together. It's a really big deal, right? And so I've gone to Long Wood Gardens with players, done Pokemon community days, walking around, in areas of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, right? Just all kinds of little adventures and I think these are important for deepening friendships, right? And I really feel like that was a gift Gary gave us. He's like, yes, you can play Dungeons and Dragons, but friendship is real, right? And he was saying this physical table matters, right? Your friends matter, right? And we're going to build this together, right? So I go to lunch with him, and he brings up my Dungeons and Dragons game, and we start talking about it, right? And what he explained is he was saying that this other player, the reason that they were letting these adventure opportunities sail by is he was saying that person doesn't really consider themselves an adventurer. They consider themselves a traveler, right? And I was like, that is really fascinating. So that's the point of this entire video, is there's a difference between an adventurer and a traveler. And there are Dungeons & Dragons players right now who consider themselves travelers, not adventurers. And I think that this is connected to the growing desire of much of the community to abandon alignment. And I think many Dungeons & Dragons players have abandoned alignment, right? And how do you abandon alignment? Well, the first thing you do is you say, alignment is defined differently by different people. Wrong, right? Good is good, evil is evil, neutral is neutral. There is, and it's not relative, right? There is hard truth, right? So I'm coming from that perspective, right? But the players at my table are not, right? They're saying, oh, well, alignment, schmalignment, it can be whatever we want it to be. And, it can be whatever we want it to be. And, they are very distinctly interpreting it the way they want, right? And trying to move away from alignment. And this is why Tales from the Valiant and Pathfinder are like, oh, well, let's strip alignment out, and then we can just make the entire game, let's make murder hobo theme parks, right? Let's not have adventurers who are questing to have their good characters overcome evil. That's Dungeons and Dragons to me, right? But at my table, I'm discovering that is not the case. That is not what they are doing, right? They are doing something very different, and this is, this is very different, and they are playing in a different way, right? And I think this is really fascinating to see. Once you start to step away from alignment, you start to step away from a lot of things. And I think, it was really helpful for this player to explain. This other player does not consider themselves an adventurer. They consider themselves a traveler. And it fit perfectly, because I've been thinking in my head, I keep thinking that they want to complete these quests. But the reality is, what I was thinking the player wanted to do was go from 4th to 20th level, right? And that is a ride. That is a ride you can go on in Dungeons and Dragons, right? You could, by the way, I don't mess around with first level, second level, third level. I start at 4th. I want people to have some juice, right? I want them to start with some cool stuff, some cool abilities, right? So my campaigns are 4th to 20th level, and I level people very fast. You're leveling every session or every other session, right? So in order to get to 20th level in my campaign, it might take between as low as 15 sessions to as many as 30 sessions. But I will tell you right now, if you're 30 sessions in, if you complete 30 sessions in my Dungeons and Dragons campaign, you're going to reach level 20, right? And that is the cap on your character. You may be allowed to play at level 20 until your other player characters catch up, right? But that's the campaign, right? And it doesn't last forever. It's a year and a half, it's 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. But when you're done, you could say, hey, I have had a 20th level character, or I have players in my games because of the way I roll, right? Who could say I've had multiple 20th level player characters, right? And not a lot of people can say that. I know that for a fact because they did a study, and most campaigns are ending at the sixth session, right? So this was really fascinating. This idea of the person saying, I'm not going to, just do every quest you put in front of me. I'm traveling, so I might just witness the atrocity you put in front of me, and I'm not going to do anything about it, right? Now, what really is astounding to me, right, is I'm coming from this perspective of saying, hey, you have power, right? I'm putting people who are in need and need help and are really put out and in danger, right? You are expected to use that power base to fix the problems of the world that you encounter, right? And you as a group are going to fix every quest because there's evil in the world, you're good, and you have this power set, and that obligates you to fix this world, right? Because your power set obligates you. Now, what's interesting is that's my view, right? The players at the table are like, we might just witness some of these atrocities, and they did. Like, I could not believe it. Like, there was this one scene where they came across a woman who was dehydrated on the high plains, dehydrated, right, and clearly struggling in the plains, and did not have enough to, and clearly was struggling to find things to eat, and was dehydrated, and the player characters walked around. I was like, what? I was astounded, right? And this is where we land when alignment is gone, right? Now, I love Dungeons & Dragons, right? And I am incredibly thankful for every person who shows up at the table. I do not think it's owed to me. I owe them a compelling story, and I know I've been delivering that if they continue to show up, and that's the only metric. That is the only metric. Don't tell yourself anything else, right? And so, I think that was really interesting, and but that is, so I was thinking, okay, these players are survivors. They're looking to survive and ride from 4th level to 20th level. And what's interesting is Dungeons & Dragons is such an amazing game, right? And there's so much to do on the build, and so many choices, and so many, okay, I know, some very heavy, like extremely powerful, enemies are going to be here. What am I going to do this week? And I know my players are thinking, man, that like they have spells locked and loaded, they have plans locked and loaded, for when the big bad arrives, right? And that's interesting. That is interesting. Now, and what's interesting is often when, some of the players at the table are fighting to be heroes, others are literally like, just going from 4th to 5th level. Just going from 8th to 9th level. That's all it is. It's all you're seeing here. I'm like, wow, man, this is really different, right? So there is a difference. Like we're starting to move to a space where not every player is an adventurer, but some players are simply travelers. And if you put atrocities of the Dungeons & Dragons realms in front of them, they may simply witness them and do nothing to stop them, right? And I need to be ready for that and engage these players in ways that respect their ability to make that choice, right? So it is hard. It's incredibly difficult for me to not understand that. Like to me, it's the Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility. And we have a new generation of players who's like, nope, with great power comes whatever the heck I want, right? And I don't have to be responsible. I can witness atrocities and do nothing to stop it, right? And the reality is, I'm incredibly blessed. They're showing up. They're continuing to go forward, right? And also, I need to learn too. If the players are not accepting the hooks that are there, right? If I'm patient, they will make their own hooks. That surprised me as well, right? So, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this transition from adventurer to traveler? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.